नमस्कार. ये गैप हो गया ना. अब आ रही है?
हेलो.
हाँ, अब आ रही है. गुड इवनिंग एंड नमस्कार. Okay. Good evening and namaskar. How are you? Okay. So today, as we meet each other after a gap, it is the 21st of June, the longest day of the year, also known as the summer solstice. And I'm sure you're aware that I was just talking of, in which city of India or in which place of India the sun rises the first. The sun rises the first in Arunachal Pradesh, which is so called Arunachal Pradesh. The term Arun means sun. And of course, because it rises the first in Arunachal Pradesh, it sets the first in East. But incidentally, India has one standard time, which is known as the Indian Standard Time. So welcome to this new session of Reading Comprehension. We begin with Reading Comprehension, and also we begin with a passage. I appreciate if you read this passage and don't give yourselves more than 2 minutes to read this. Read the passage now, please, and 2 minutes, like I said. We go to the next part now. 2 minutes again. As Val continued to examine the anomaly, an archaeological team, now when this passage is slightly shorter, take maybe 30-40 seconds. Team led by National Geographic explorer Francisco Estrada Belli of Tulane University commenced excavation at Vidzana, where investigations revealed extensive traces of burning throughout the settlement, suggesting that the destruction had been intentionally inflicted rather than caused by accidental fire. Even more remarkably, they uncovered an inscription identifying the city by its ancient Maya name, Balam Jol. This discovery enabled researchers to establish links with historical records preserved elsewhere. The team subsequently consulted Alexandre Tocqueville, a specialist in Mayan epigraphy at the University of Alabama, who recalled a carved monument from the nearby city of Naranjo commemorating several successful military campaigns against neighboring kingdoms. One passage recorded that on a date corresponding to May 21, incidentally, July 697 AD, Balam Joel burned. Significantly, Balam Joel was not the only city whose destruction by fire was celebrated in the inscription. At least 3 other regional centers were similarly described, implying that systematic destruction through fire was already an established military strategy. Such evidence cast doubt on the prevailing view that total warfare emerged only during the terminal classic period, roughly a century later. The burning of cities appears to have been a far more widespread practice much earlier than scholars had assumed, remarks Wall. Consequently, he argues that explanations attributing the collapse of Maya civilization, primarily to escalating warfare near the end of the Classic era, warrant substantial revision. This evidence increasingly suggests that organized violence was neither novel nor confined to the civilization's final phase. VARC is presently investigating the role played by climatic change in this process, although evidence indicates that maize cultivation declined sharply following the major conflagration. Agriculture appears to disappear entirely around 1000 AD, coinciding with independent findings pointing to severe and prolonged regional droughts. This chronology suggests that environmental stress may indeed have contributed decisively to the decline of the Mayan civilization, though perhaps not by intensifying war itself. Rather, shifting climatic conditions may have undermined agricultural systems and social resilience through more complex mechanisms than previously assumed. Which of the following most accurately capture the author's principal argumentative enterprise? Option B. Now look at option B. To reassess a dominant explanatory framework by introducing evidence that complicates its chronology and by proposing a more nuanced causal interpretation. Option B. The passage begins by presenting the orthodox view. Now, just for the record, orthodoxy means strict compliance with the past, with traditions, with beliefs, with customs. That destructive warfare became significant only during the terminal classic period because drought intensified competition. It then introduces fresh evidence, charcoal deposits, excavations, and inscriptions, showing that total warfare existed much earlier. However, the author does not reject the role of climate entirely. Instead, he proposes a more nuanced means subtle explanation in which drought may have affected agricultural systems and social resilience through which mechanisms other than simply causing warfare. Thus, the passage revises chronology and defines causation rather than replacing one explanation. It refines the causation. A is an opposite stance. The new evidence complicates rather than confirms the accepted explanation. C is conceptual distortion. The passage itself is revisionist and challenges orthodoxy instead of defending it. D is out of scope. The author uses multiple forms of evidence jointly and does not claim that epigraphy is superior to paleoclimatology. Now, 1 second. Please note down epigraphy. Epigraphy is the art of writing scriptures. Epigraphy is writing on stone. Epigraphy is writing on usually a short or sentence or a phrase on a building. That is epigraphy. Now, the other word I wanted to do with you is paleoclimatology. Now, the word, remember, paleo means stones. So, paleoclimatology is the study of climate through stones. So, if you know the meaning of the word plymouth, you will know that's the climate of the past age studied through stones. If there is another word which you might have found, of course, chronology, you know, Maya is South American civilization, Mexican. And very interesting word, which you must remember always. The word term, term means end. So determine is a final decision. Terminal is final disease, God forbid. And terminus is the bus stand where all buses end. Question 2 now. If there is any other word which you'd like me to explain, please write in the comment box. Question 2. Okay, Devansh and Anshika said that they were not able to listen to the passage or read the passage. 1 minute, huh? Give me 1 minute. We will just do the passage all over again. I'll read it with you. But see, basically what is necessary for Devansh and Anshika and all of us sitting here is to have a little idea about history, a little idea about general knowledge. Okay. A long-standing orthodoxy, and orthodoxy is a firm belief surrounding the ancient Maya civilization. And I told you that Maya civilization, just as we have the Indus Valley or we have the Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, South America has Maya. Now remember, South American civilization is known as Mayan civilization. Okay. And specifically, it is in Mexico. Devansh, Anshika. And the classic period extends from 250 to 950 AD. This period is known, it sounds like a history class, it is an English class. But it is a classic period, and according to history, we saw extensive destruction and substantial civilian casualties. Civilian casualties, people died, people who were not with the army, even they died. This much is clear. Historians have generally assumed, an assumption is a decision that you take, you assume that ma'am reads fast. Historians have generally assumed that devastating means totally destroying, conflicts came out only toward the end of the classic era, when increasingly severe droughts. Now, what is the difference between a drought and a famine? Remember, a drought is God made. There is no rain, so it is drought. And a famine is, this is a very important definition, differentiation. A famine is man-made. When the state is not able to supply food, it is a famine. When increasingly severe droughts undermine agricultural productivity. Intensified competition among rival city-states and brought about violent confrontations believed to have contributed to the civilization's collapse. So we believed that all this is responsible for the collapse. However, new findings published in Nature Human Behavior. Now this is a publication published in Nature Human Behavior, and to add to a growing body of evidence suggesting that destructive campaigns directed against both military and civilian targets, what scholars described as total warfare, predated the climatic disruptions that threatened Maya subsistence systems. Subsistence, something that allows you to live. Okay. So we had campaigns which predated, which occurred before climatic disruptions. I hope Devansh and Anshika, it is clear now. When paleoclimatologists, now this word must have created a problem, but there are no problems in the English language, it's all unfamiliar. Paleo, remember, always, paleo means stone. Climate means climate. So a person who studies the climate through the history of stones. David Wall of the US Geological Survey, geology is the study of stones, began investigating evidence of drought during the terminal classic period. Now, terminal, I told you, means end, and its implication for agriculture. He traveled in 2013 to Laguna Eknab. Laguna, remember, in English there's a word called lagoon. There is also a word called lake. They're all water bodies. So he traveled to Laguna Eknab, a lake situated beneath a steep escarpment crowned by the remains of an ancient Maya settlement known to archaeologists as Widzna. Among the most striking discoveries made from sediment cores extracted from the lake bed was a charcoal-rich layer, approximately 1.2 inches thick. Now, see, very interesting word. The word is sediment. Sedimentary stones. Sed means settled. Side also means settled. So you reside somewhere. You have a residence. And then residual. And then sediment. So when you drink tea, there's a little sugar left at the bottom of the cup, that is sediment. Because forests are routinely burned to clear land, yet in 2 decades of sampling, I had never encountered anything comparable in scale. Yes, thank you for the question. Anomaly. What does anomaly mean? Anomaly means something that is different from what is normal, or what is normal or usual. Some people have 6 fingers instead of 5. That is an anomaly. So he has an anomaly. He's got 6 fingers. Anomalous, different from the usual. Anomalous, anomaly, something different. Okay. If somebody were to have 6 fingers, and it doesn't harm. Hrithik Roshan has got 6 fingers. He thinks it's his luck. So having 6 fingers is an anomaly. Having 2 different feet, 1 foot is size 7, 1 foot is size 7.5. Nobody will know except you, because you have to buy 2 pairs of shoes. That is an anomaly. Sed means to settle. Sediment is the settlement. An interesting word I'll tell you. You know palmistry. I'm sure you know palmistry. You've heard of palmistry. What I do not say you know palmistry. You know what palmistry is. You know what astrology is. Please write the word. Tessiography. Now this word has occurred in CAT VARC. Now tessiography is the study of sediments that stay back in your chai. So when you have chai and something is left, that is sediments. And there are people who actually study what you have left behind. That is known as tessiography. As Wall continued to examine the anomaly, an archaeological team led by National Geographic explorer Francisco Estrada Belli of Tulane University commenced excavations. You know commenced, I'm sure. Commenced means began. Their investigations showed extensive traces of burning throughout the settlement, suggesting that the destruction had been intentionally inflicted, brought upon, suggesting that the destruction had been intentionally inflicted rather than caused by accidental fire. Even more remarkably, they uncovered an inscription identifying the city by its ancient Mayan name, Balam Joel. Balam Joel. This discovery enabled researchers to establish links with historical records preserved elsewhere. If today, latest by tomorrow, if you read a little about the Indus Valley civilization also, you will kind of understand this passage more. There's a film called Mohenjo-daro. Mohenjo-daro, Hrithik Roshan, and I'm forgetting the name of the girl, Hegde. That film is based on Mohenjo-daro. Of course, it is based on Mohenjo-daro, but it shows everything wrong. The dresses are wrong, the costumes are wrong, the dances are wrong. But if you watch the film, at the end of the film, there is an inquiry. What brought about an end to Mohenjo-daro or Harappa? I'm not asking you to watch Mohenjo-daro as a lecture in history, because everything would be too much to say, but most of the items are wrong. The dresses, I saw the costumes and the dances, the lighting. But anyway, but there is a comparison between Maya and Indus Valley because we still don't know how Indus Valley came to an end. The team subsequently consulted Alexandre Tocqueville, a specialist in Maya epigraphy at the University of Alabama. Now, Alexandra Tocqueville is a specialist who recalled a carved monument for the nearby city Naranjo, commemorating several successful military campaigns against neighboring kingdoms. One passage recorded that on a date corresponding to May 21, 697 AD, Baalam Jol burned. Significantly, Baalam Jol was not the only city whose destruction by fire was celebrated in the inscription. At least 3 other regional centers were similarly described, implying that the systematic destruction through fire was already an established military strategy. Now remember this word. It is not in this passage, but remember the word incinerate. And also this is burning. Incinerating is burning. So the entire regional centers were burnt. Such evidence, another word for evidence would be proof, casts doubt on the prevailing view that total warfare emerged only during the terminal classic period, roughly a century later. And here you should know the meaning of the word terminal. The burning of city appears to have been a far more widespread practice much earlier than scholars had assumed, remarks Wall. Consequently, he argues that explanations attributing the collapse of Mayan civilization primarily to escalating warfare, increasing. Near the end of the classic era, warrant substantial revision. The evidence increasingly suggests that organized violence was neither novel meaning new, nor confined meaning limited. Wall is presently investigating the role played by climatic change in this process. Although evidence indicates that maize cultivation, now just remember this is a general awareness thing, the bhutta that you like, the bhutta that you enjoy, came to India from South America. And bhutta is maize. Maize cultivation declined sharply following the major conflagration. Conflagration is a fire. A conflagration is a fire. Aag lag gayi. There is a conflagration. Agriculture appears to disappear entirely only around 1000 AD. Coinciding with independent findings, pointing to severe and prolonged regional droughts. Here I told you the difference between drought and famine. This chronology suggests that environmental stress may indeed have contributed decisively to the decline of the Mayan civilization, though perhaps not by intensifying war. Rather, shifting climatic conditions may have undermined agricultural systems and social resilience. Resilience is the ability to withstand pressure, though more complex mechanisms than previously assumed. Devansh, Anshika, and everybody else, I hope I have made the passage literally clear. If you still have a doubt, feel free to write. Otherwise, now try and solve the passage. We've done this, but let's do it once again. Which of the following most accurately captures the author's principle? Principle meaning main argumentative enterprise. If there is a word in these questions which you feel I must explain to you, or I must at least tell you the meaning of, please feel free to ask. Marshal. Now, to marshal means to arrange, gather, or organize resources. To arrange, gather resources. So you could say, when I sit down to prepare what passages we are going to do together, I'm marshalling new resources. All right. We've done this before, so we know the answer. If there is any word in this passage which you feel demands an explanation, please feel free. Option B is the correct option explanation. You know why. Anomalously. Same. You know the meaning of anomaly? To act, occur in such a way that it deviates from what is standard, normal, or expected. Describe something irregular, inconsistent, or out of place. Anomalous, anomaly, all of them. So suppose in the middle of this class I start doing ramba, ho, ho, ho. It is anomalous. It's not nothing to do with my class. So anything which is different from the expected, different from the normal, and strikingly different, not just not different. Okay. Sometimes I do speak in Hindi. That is okay. But if I continuously decide to take English comprehension in Hindi, then it would be anomalously teaching reading comprehension. Deviant. Deviant means something that deviates from the normal. Deviant. Say that again. Also pronounce the word. Deviant means different from what most people consider to be acceptable or normal. You know, in a country like India, I am not a person who suggests patriarchy, who supports patriarchy. But if suddenly somebody starts jumping in the name of patriarchy, it would be deviant. Deviant is something that goes against the accepted normal. And who asked me this question? One second. Anshika, I think you asked me deviant. So, Anshika, what happens is, I'm not for a moment saying that you should deviate from the path, but deviant is something that goes against. Maybe 20, 30 years ago, it was a deviant, you know, kind of policy or kind of activity that girls began to retain their premarital surname. Somewhere in 84 or maybe 82, I saw a newsreader writing Sangeeta Kaul Verma. This was 1982, I think maybe 1983. No, 1992. I don't remember. Anyway. So I said, oh my God, what a smart thing to do. She has retained her premarital surname. But nowadays, girls don't even add the second surname. So, deviant or not depends on the times in which you are living. Today, it would be accepted as normal. The girl decides not to change her surname. But 40 years ago, somebody decided not to change her surname. It was deviant. Have I made myself clear? Okay, we've done this already. Thank you for all the questions that you ask. The anomalously thick charcoal-bearing sedimentary deposit recovered from Laguna Ignab most directly lends credence. Remember, I think I've done this word with you before. Cred means to believe. Credence is belief. If somebody asks you for 5,000 rupees, you will give him credit on credit because you believe that he will return it. Credible. Credible means believable. So it gives credence, direct belief to the propositions. Proposition is a proposal. Please read these 4 options on your own. That will be more helpful. Feel free to ask me if you don't know the word. Forest burning for agricultural purposes was sufficiently widespread among the Maya to leave unusually dense charcoal signatures in lacustrine deposits. Does this word trouble you? Lacustrine deposits. See, you already know that they were found in lakes. So, lacustrine means dealing with lakes. See, laguna. Laguna means lake. Lake means lake. Lacustrine means dealing with lake. See how root words help you. Immediately word का meaning आ जाता है. हाँ जी. Shall we go ahead? Correct option explanation. Option C. VARC explicitly notes that charcoal is common because forests are routinely burned for agriculture. But he had never encountered anything comparable in scale. The unusually thick charcoal layer therefore suggests an episode far exceeding ordinary agricultural clearing. When later archaeological evidence revealed widespread burning at Vidna, the sedimentary anomaly acquired a plausible explanation in terms of extensive destructive conflict. Thus, the charcoal layer supports the possibility of large-scale burning associated with warfare. It's C. A is opposite inference. Again, I'm telling you, inference means guess. It also means, I think I've done this word with you sometime. It means supposition. Unsupported inference. The charcoal layer itself says nothing directly about drought-induced agricultural decline. Extreme language. And this we've discussed again and again and again and again. Whenever the language is extreme, the answer is wrong. The deposit does not independently establish the cause of collapse, nor does it prove drought-induced warfare. Question 3, please read the question on your own. Okay, Devansh, thank you so much for this advice. Norman Lewis's word power made easy. Very, 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 very good. But at the same time, use your own systems. Whatever words, like I gave you the word term today, or I gave you the word side today. Make your own Norman Lewis. Use Norman Lewis. I'm not saying it's not a good book. I'm saying it's a very, very good support system. But you know, at the end of 6 months, you should have your own Norman Lewis ready. And one advice which I can give you, and I have practiced it myself, Devansh and everybody, pick up a notebook like this, and on the first page, this is not a notebook, this is a textbook. On the first page, write A, and whatever new words, like today we did anomaly, anomalously, all those words, you write them here, okay? And leave 3-4 pages for A, then you go to B. So whenever you find, today I did the word term with you. So go to T, write term. I discussed the word side with you: reside, resident, sedimentary, residual. Write that. R में लिख लो, but SID would be better for S. So Devansh, what happens is, by the end of, and revise every day, huh? Don't forget. Today you did anomaly, this, read it again and again and again and again and again. You don't know where the words comes. Okay. Question 3, have we done? Does anybody have an option here? Thank you, Devansh. How to find language? Option contains extreme words. One day I think I did this with you, but I'll tell you. But Devansh, I do it even today. Now look at the word. I'm just discussing. We'll do the question. Peripheral. Now peripheral means on the boundary. Now if you remember, Devansh and everybody else, perimeter. You're doing maths every day. Hindi में परिक्रमा. Same है. Okay. Exceptional, punitive. Punitive means punishment. You know, children who commit crimes, juvenile delinquency, people who make mistakes, do it with a lot of impunity. Impunity. Impunity means the belief that one will not be punished. So punitive, impunity, and punishment. Question 3, option C, Anshika. Correct, Anshika. 3 cheers. And I wonder why it's always 3 cheers. So, option C, the inscription records that Balam Joel burned in 697 AD. I'm finding this word very interesting, Balam Joel. Not Joel, but Balam. And you know, you'll find it more interesting that in Jodhpur, we have a kakadi. Kakadi samajhte ho na? Cucumber. So we have a cucumber known as Balam. So when it's known as Balam kakadi. Okay. So this demonstrates that systematic burning of settlements was already an established military strategy well before the terminal classic period. Consequently, destructive warfare cannot be regarded as a late phenomena triggered solely by drought. The inscription thus pushes back the chronology of total warfare. हाँ जी. A, B, C are incorrect. A is unsupported. Extreme language. The inscription lists multiple cities indicating that such destruction was not exceptional. Do question 4. Warfare. Have you got the answer? Question 4. Correct option is D. Correct option is D. Hello, Mohan. How are you? Okay. Now, Devansh, I think you asked me. Devansh asked me, or Mohan asked me, or Anshika asked me. Now, remember, what are absolute keywords? How to identify extreme language was the question. Okay. I'm answering that question. How to identify extreme language. Now, remember, what's for absolute keywords? If there is all, if there is always, if there is every, if there is everyone, if there is must, necessarily, firm words, completely. And moderate language would not be every time, would be sometimes. That would be moderate language. Some will be moderate language. All people are blind. Some people are blind. So you learn, I'm sorry, and Devansh, the more you practice, the more you will learn how to differentiate between moderate language and between extreme language. Extreme language will contain exaggeration. It would contain generalization. So all girls were absent. Some of the girls were absent. सब के सब नाराज थे. थोड़े से लोग नाराज थे. ज़्यादा लोग नाराज थे. But moment in Hindi also, everybody was angry. No. So this is extreme language. I hope I've satisfied your query. We've done this. Please do this. The reference, remember, it's a very slight thing and we're only chatting. But you know, if you decide to chat correctly, your English becomes correct. It is ma'am. Okay. And even I say yeah, but in formal space, always say yes. You know, what we reap today, we sow tomorrow. What we sow today, we reap tomorrow. What happens is, we are so used to this. Yeah, it's not wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong. But you know, imagine yourself, you have cleared your RC with a 99.9 percentile. You've cleared VA. You cleared CAT. Okay. The interview is 2 days off. So, yeah, cuts your marks immediately. It has to be yes. The reference to the eventual disappearance of maize cultivation serves primarily to advance the suggestion yet. Yes, Anshika, do you have an auction? A conflagration is a fire. A conflagration is a major fire. Is a large destructive fire. Conflagration is a large destructive fire. Thank you, Devansh. Okay, Devansh says 5B. Anshika says 5C. All right. Shall we go further? Thank you. So, Anshika, फिर से सही हो गए आप तो. The author notes that maize cultivation declined after the... Now, conflagration, remember fire. And conflagration is a large destructive fire. And if the fire has been put purposely to loot or to riot, it is arson. Remember, arson is also a fire. Corresponding with evidence of severe drought, this chronology suggests that agricultural deterioration was an important part of the decline process. The passage deliberately avoids reducing collapse to a single cause and instead presents agriculture as one significant component within a broader and more complex picture. B is unsupported, D is extreme. देखो मैं फिर से D पे जा रही हूँ आपको explain करने. The chronology of agricultural collapse conclusively establishes. Conclusively. Now, conclusively means extreme language. It's final. There's no argument about it. Rather than warfare is the singular. So, conclusively makes it extreme language. Okay. Now, we come to passage 2. In the meantime, if there is something in passage 1 that you have a doubt, please tell me. And remember this, like I told you, this is how we realized that maize comes from South America. The aloo or the potato also came from South America. the cabbage, the brinjal, the tomato, the capsicum. All these vegetables came from Portugal, not South America. So South America say we got potato, we got maize, and we got cabbage, which is gobi. We got tomato, which is of course tomato, tomato, and we got capsicum. Any other sabzi that you can think of? All these we got from brinjal or the eggplant. We got all of them from Portugal. Portugal. Remember, this is not a GK class. But you know what happens is that if these things, if these facts are discussed with you in the passage, in any passage, it doesn't come to you as a surprise. First, when I learned in, I think 2008, 2009, that maize is not ours. Arey, bhutta hamara nahi hai. That's the time I realized that, okay, I need to know all this. Impunity means freedom from punishment. Thank you so much for this question. Impunity means freedom from punishment. You know that you will not be punished. Okay? Impunity. Devansh, thank you for the question. और याद रखना देवांश, PUN से punish. ठीक है? Punitive action is action that punishes you. चलिए, अब हम पैसेज 2 पे चढ़ते हैं. आप खुद पढ़ने की कोशिश करिए. So, the relationship between psychoanalysis and legal theory defies any simple characterization. It would be misleading to describe it either as one of harmonious cooperation or one marked by unqualified hostility. From one standpoint, the psychoanalyst regards the preservation of a legal and judicial order as indispensable to individual psychological equilibrium. Equilibrium is balance. From another, however, he often used much of existing law as an inheritance of intellectual and moral assumptions whose contemporary relevance has become increasingly doubtful. Legal practitioners, for their part, occasionally welcome the insights into human behavior provided by psychoanalysis. Yet they frequently respond defensively when confronted with broader psychoanalytic critiques of legal institutions. The principal source of tension between the two disciplines lies in the notion of responsibility. Traditional legal doctrine assumes that individuals possess free will and exercise meaningful choice in their actions. Psychoanalysts, by contrast, as Franz had observed, tends to view the psyche as a system governed by psychological and biological determinants within which free will is largely illusory and the superego exercises regulatory and control. Please read. Alexander distinguished four categories of offenders according to the extent of conscious participation involved in criminal conduct. In psychotic and intellectually impaired individuals, criminal acts arise from organic deterioration and consciousness involvement is particularly virtually absent. Among neurotic offenders, however, degrees of awareness vary considerably. Certain neurotic personalities, such as kleptomaniacs and pyromaniacs. A kleptomaniac is a person who steals. Maniac, he loves stealing. A pyromaniac is a person who loves the fire, so he just lights up matches. Repeatedly enact unconscious patterns of transgression followed by self punishment. Their behavior is essentially involuntary and conscious participation remains minimal. In more general neurotic personalities, the conscious mind assumes a greater role, acknowledging the overt act while remaining ignorant of its deeper subjective significance. Mechanisms such as rationalization and projection are commonly present. In the case of the ordinary or professional criminal, Alexander identified what he termed as criminal superego. Such individuals experience little unconscious conflict, having adapted themselves to a social environment whose values are themselves hostile to legal norms. Their conduct involves an almost complete degree of conscious participation, and this category includes many habitual offenders. Finally, the circumstantial or temporary offender displays total conscious participation, but extraordinary external pressures are perceived as sufficient to release him from the restraints that ordinarily confine behavior within legal boundaries. The psychoanalytic account of criminality suggests that a practical accommodation between lawyer and analyst should, in principle, be attainable. Both sides agree that individuals whose conduct is susceptible to deterrence. To deter is to stop doing something. To deterrence, and whose actions involve substantial conscious participation, ought to be held legally accountable as though their choices originated in free will. By contrast, neurotic and psychotic offenders whose actions are not meaningfully constrained by the prospect of punishment cannot appropriately be treated according to the same standards. There's a psychologist who said that every man is capable of, by his free will, to take an action. So if he thinks that stealing is right and he steals, he should be punished for it. But in 20th century law, sorry, we are in the 21st century, we know that there is something called psychology, and psychology is disturbed. Yet, legal institutions have historically resisted such a compromise with psychiatry. The conventional lawyer assumes that legal responsibility is inseparable from moral responsibility, and moral responsibility presupposes freedom of choice. Judges and legislators have therefore been reluctant to accept psychiatric criteria for identifying the non-responsible offender. They continue to rely upon the traditional right and wrong test, according to which evidence of mental disorder is relevant only insofar as it demonstrates that the accused lack the capacity to understand the moral nature and wrongfulness of the act. Psychoanalysts have sharply criticized the standard, arguing that it holds responsible many severely disturbed individuals whose actions are compulsive despite their awareness that they are wrong. From the psychoanalytic perspective, no individual ought to be adjudged guilty if, at the time of committing the act, he was suffering from significant mental disturbance. Now, this is not a critique, but a personal view that a person may have committed the act in total awareness, and then he may pretend to be mentally disturbed. This is the point that lawyers and legal institutions take. Please look at the question. According to the classificatory schema advanced by Franz Alexander, which of the following sequences most accurately arranges the categories of offenders in descending order of conscious participation? Schema is a structured framework. Schema is a structured framework. Now, for example, the question 1 has a schema, all questions, A, B, C, D. So, it comes from the word schema, from the word scheme. It means a structured order. Question 1, nobody is telling me the answer. You've all become quiet. Yes. No participation. One D. Okay, thank you, Anshika, for participating. Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to the answer. C. 1B. Devansh, thank you. And Mohan K. Sharma, thank you. But the answer is C. Alexander's classification moves from complete or near complete conscious participation to almost total absence of awareness. Circumstantial offenders show total conscious participation but succumb under extraordinary external pressure. Professional criminals possess almost complete conscious participation and little inner conflict. General neurotic personalities consciously acknowledge the act but remain unaware of its deeper significance. Specific neurotic personalities, such as kleptomaniacs and pyromaniacs, remember the word pyre means fire, act compulsively with minimal conscious participation. Psychotic and intellectually impaired offenders occupy the lowest end of the spectrum, where conscious involvement is virtually absent. Thus, option A produces. So, now we go to question 2. No, we didn't fail. Anshika, we tried, we didn't succeed. And remember, Anshika, I'm talking to you personally. Never use the word fail for yourself. You tried, you didn't succeed, you'll try again. Have you heard the story? Try, try, try again. Anybody? Have you heard this? It's a parable. Try, try, try again until you succeed. Have you heard this parable, anybody? So there was this William Edward Hickson, and William Edward Hickson says that there is importance in trying, and there is also importance in not agreeing that you failed. Okay, and you might have uh, heard of the word manifestation. Manifestation is what we think we become. So there was this king known as King Robert the Bruce, and he was a king of Scotland. And he was hiding in a cave. He was literally hiding in a cave. And why was he hiding in a cave? Because his enemies were there. And in the cave, he was scared, and he just looked at the top of the cave. I can't say ceiling or roof. And he saw that there was a spider. What did he see? A spider. A spider went up, tried to climb in the corner, fell down. And he realized that we don't fail unless we stop trying. Try, try, try again. Thank you, Anshika. I hope it didn't become a boring lecture. But personally, I do not like the word fail. Arey wah. Try, try, but don't cry. अरे वाह, क्राई तो करेंगे ही नहीं हम जीतेंगे, युग जीतेगा, हम जीतेंगे, कैटमॉक जीतेगा, और तुम लोग जीत जाओगे तो ज्योति काटजू भी जीत जाएगी। और अंशिका, देवांश, पता नहीं आप लोगों ने नोट किया कि नहीं, I didn't take classes for around 10 days. And if you wonder why I didn't take classes, I was answering exams. I appeared for my MEd. MEd is Master of Education, where you teach how to teach, where you learn how to teach teachers. There's no need for me to do. But I did the MEd, kept trying, kept writing, kept forgetting. Which of the following most accurately characterizes the relationship between psychoanalysts and the legal profession as presented in the passage? Yes. Oh, Anshika, my papers went off well. Thank you for asking. I spoiled the first paper, and horror of horrors. My first paper was on Saturday, and on Friday I burnt my hand, my left hand, thankfully, not my right hand. I'm a right-handed person. And remember, a person who can use both hands is known as ambidextrous. But anyway, and dext means skilled. So I sat, not because of the burnt hand, but it had a lot of statistics. So first paper was in Arabic, it is noos noos. Noos noos means middle middle. In not in Urdu. In Arabic, noos noos. It was average. Paper 2, paper 3, paper 4, paper 5 were very, 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 very good. Paper 6 was noos noos. Okay. Which of the following most accurately characterizes the relationship between psychoanalysis and the legal profession? Have you got the answers? C. किसी ने लिखा है क्या? मोहन, आई डोंट नो आपके आंसर के ऊपर क्या आ रहा है. Noosh noos, yes. Noosh noos, not nas nas, huh? Noosh noos. Noosh noos means just about okay. The author explicitly begins by rejecting simplistic characterizations. Psychoanalysis values legal order as necessary for psychological equilibrium balance, while simultaneously criticizing inherited legal assumptions. Lawyers appreciate psychoanalytic insights into human behavior but resist broader challenges to legal responsibility. Thus, the relationship contains elements of cooperation and tension, making it neither wholly harmonious nor fundamentally hostile. Option C captures this balanced this thing. Yes. Next. Acha, I looked up that noosh noosh in Arabic means half half. Half good, half bad. I always thought it meant just about okay. If an additional paragraph were to be inserted between the first and second paragraphs, which of the following would most plausibly constitute its principal concern? Now, for this, it's remember, you should remember what's happened in the first and what's happened in the second. A critique of the legal profession's historical inability to accommodate developments in modern psychology, an exposition of how psychoanalytical and legal frameworks offer competing explanations of criminal responsibility and deviant conduct, an account of the consequences arising from legislators' failure to appreciate the role of the ego in moral accountability, a historical survey of attempts by psychoanalysts to influence criminal jurisprudence and sentencing policy. Fantastic, Mohan. Fantastic, Devansh. Fantastic. Anshika, all of you, you're getting the hang of it. I'm so happy to see all of you getting the answers correct. The first paragraph identifies the central source of tension, notion meaning idea, the responsibility and the contrast between free will and psychological determinism. Psychological determinism. Yay, yes. We are all correct. Very good. I'm so happy for you. Happy for myself also. Option A is narrow. The passage does not yet criticize lawyers, but first develops theoretical differences out of scope. Legislators are discussed much later, and the role of the ego is not central transitional concern, irrelevant chronology. Historical influence is not the missing link between the two paragraphs. Very, very good. Question 4. If I may just interrupt you, speak in between. As far as the CAT-VARC, reading comprehension, is concerned, it is not necessary to have previous knowledge. Okay? It is not compulsory to have previous knowledge. But if you have previous knowledge, it helps. So please, 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 please start reading extra. Start reading as much as you can. And the more you read, pick up any topic, pick up anything and start reading about it. And don't let even a minute go without doing what you are doing. So the more you read, the better you become. Please continue. Just give me a minute, please. I'll get some more water for myself. किसने खोला? तुमने खोल दिया? अच्छा हाँ, मेरी क्लास थी, मुझे लगा खोला नहीं इसलिए। नहीं, बिल्कुल नहीं। हाँ, आपसे पूछ लो क्या बनाना है? क्या बनाना? हाँ, हाँ, लाइट जलाना। हाँ जी, हमें एक गिलास पानी और दे दीजिएगा, एक बोतल। Which of the following propositions would the author be least inclined to concur? Concur means to agree with. Concur means to agree with. The tension between psychoanalysis and law arises fundamentally from divergent assumptions concerning free will, responsibility, and punishment. Circumstantial and professional offenders constitute categories whose conduct is relatively more susceptible to deterrence through punishment. Psychoanalysts would oppose the criminal conviction is belief, of individuals whose psychological disturbances deprive them of effective control over their conduct. Despite present disagreements, a comprehensive synthesis of psychoanalytical and, thank you, analytical, yes. Despite present disagreements, a comprehensive synthesis of psychoanalytic and legal traditions is likely to furnish a definitive explanation of criminal behavior. Yes. Have you given the answer, anybody? D. Option D. Okay, let's check. Wah. Option D. Very, 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 very good. The author merely suggests that a practical accommodation between law and psychoanalysis is possible. Nothing indicates confidence that a complete psychosynthesis will provide a definitive theory of criminal behavior. On the contrary, the continued resistance of legal institutions and the philosophical conflict over free will imply that such a grand reconciliation remains unlikely. Therefore, this is the proposition the author would least endorse. Endorse means to support. You're becoming better and better and better and better. See, a little practice goes a long way. Directly supported, the passage explicitly identifies responsibility and free will as the principal source of tension. Strongly implied, both categories involve high degrees of conscious participation, and C is explicitly supported. But I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Very good, very good, very good. 5. ये भी सही कर लो तो मजा will come. Have you got the answers? Anybody? Devan, Shanshika, Mohan. Sorry, I'm again and again calling you Mohan. Mohak. Mohak K. Sharma. Are you Mohak K. Sharma? Sorry, sorry. All this time I've been calling you Mohan. Yes. Okay. Devansh says C. I would love if you try Moha. I would love if you try Anshika. Trying, or should I tell you? Trying. Anshika says C. Moha, are you trying? I'm going. So sorry, so sorry, so sorry. The passage is primarily comparative. It presents the assumptions underlying law and psychoanalysis, explores Alexander's classification, discusses the possibility of practical accommodation, and finally explains why legal institutions resist psychiatric standards. The author remains largely descriptive and analytical rather than prescriptive. Prescriptive means somebody who suggests. Hence, the principal objective is to contrast two competing frameworks of criminal responsibility. A is opposite stance. The author neither vindicates traditional law nor dismisses psychoanalysis. C is partially correct but incomplete. Again, D is partially correct but incomplete. Should I go to the next one? This is the next one. Mohak Sharma. Mohak Sharma. Lovely name to have, Mohak. Good name. And would you like to tell me it means somebody जो मोह करता है या जो लोगों को मोह लेता है? Mohak means attractive, charming, appealing, and infatuating. Wow. The term, have you read this? We are going to the next slide now. Pejorative means something that shows deep disapproval or, criticism or contempt of anything. So, suppose I use some word for you and I can always say I didn't mean it as a pejorative. She's very lazy. So, instead of calling her lazy, I call her lackadaisical or I call her lethargic. All these are pejoratives. Pejorative is a word that is insulting. Thank you for the question. Just remember lazy and the word leisure. Sorry. The word leisure means lazy pleasure. So, what you do to enjoy when you have nothing to do. That is leisure. Lazy pleasure. Then there is a word lethargy. Lethargy is a feeling of laziness. This also means lazy. And there is another word lackadaisical. Sorry. Lackadaisical. Lackadaisical also means lazy. Incidentally, they all begin with L. Anshika, you got the meaning of pejorative, no? Any state exercising authority over territories beyond its formal boundaries, whose inhabitants are denied the complete rights and privileges enjoyed by citizens of the metropolitan state, can be classified as colonial power. Yet, an important distinction must be maintained between territorial acquisition and colonialism as an institutional system. Thus, the westward expansion of the US across the North American continent did not constitute colonialism, since those territories were envisaged as integral components destined eventually for incorporation into the Union as equal states. Similarly, although successive 19th century administrations sought opportunities to extend American influence overseas, no permanently acquired territory outside the framework of future statehood emerged until the annexation of the Midway Islands on August 28, 1867. Even this acquisition, however, fell short of genuine colonialism, for the islands were intended primarily as a coaling station and logical stopover for routes to Asia, East Asia, rather than as objects of sustained political, economic, or demographic development. Consequently, a more refined conception of colonialism requires not merely territorial possession, but deliberate efforts by the dominant power to develop, exploit, or administer the territory for its own benefit through distinct colonial institutions. Such a condition does not necessarily imply systematic disregard for the welfare of indigenous populations, although historical experience frequently reveals such patterns. It does imply, however, that the colonial state possesses the authority to impose its political structures and establish economic supremacy over the territory, irrespective of the wishes or consent of its inhabitants. Disregard the welfare of the indigenous population. Now, disregard, in this context, I'm telling you, tell me if you know, there is only one country in the world that observes a national sorry day. Now, again, remember, I did not say celebrates. There is only one country in the world, don't Google, that observes National Sorry Day because it harmed the indigenous population. That country, ladies and gentlemen, is Australia, because they harmed the indigenous population. Now the questions, please. Do the questions on your own, ladies and gentlemen. Devansh, done. Shall we take the break now for 3 minutes? Devansh, we'll do this in 3 minutes. Thank you. Okay, Devansh, Anshika, everybody, it's 8:30. It's 8:29. We get back at 8:34. We get back at 8:34. Thank you, Devansh, and thank you, everybody. 8:34, and I will be back in the picture. Eight 34. चलिए शुरू करें. We are back. Have you done this? Correct option is B. Mohak is correct. Mohak said option B. Did somebody else also say option B? Okay. So, the passage explicitly distinguishes imperialism from colonialism. The Soviet Union already exhibited imperial tendencies through domination and incorporation of neighboring states, but the author argues that retention of Manchuria would have transformed it into a colonial power. Colonialism requires more than influence. It entails administration of territories whose inhabitants lack equivalent rights and are subjected to political and economic control. Option B accurately captures this threshold. The addition of separate administration and unequal incorporation reflects the author's refined conception of colonialism. Okay. Option 2. Plausible means something that is true. No. Something that you believe can be true. Devansh. Now, see, there is a difference between possibility, probability, and plausibility. Suppose I were to tell you, yesterday Amitabh Bachchan came to my place. Okay, I'm saying this. It is possible because he can come. It's not impossible, but it is not plausible. Why would he come to my place? Okay. Now, plausibly means something that can be relatively true, something that can be accepted as true. Now, it is impossible that the sun rises in the east. That is an impossibility. Okay. But yes, I get up at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock if I'm in Arunachal Pradesh to look at the sunrise. That is possible and it is plausible also. Okay. Have I made myself clear? Thank you, Devansh. Thank you for the question. Okay. Anybody has an answer? Option B. Option B. According to the author, A state exercising authority over territories beyond its formal boundaries, whose inhabitants do not enjoy the complete rights and privileges of metropolitan citizens, qualifies as a colonial power. Guam is cited, quoted as an example. Out of scope, the passage discusses classification, not international legitimacy. C is unsupported in inference. Inference is a guess. Colonial authority actually presupposes the ability to establish economic supremacy, not interference. Opposite stance. Sovereign autonomy is inconsistent with colonial dependence. So, question 3. Anybody has an answer? Okay. D. D. So, have you got the options? Now, question 4. Question 4. 3 was D. Question 4. Option A. Option A. So the author emphasizes that colonialism requires not merely domination, but a distinct colonial system involving territories governed separately and lacking equal integration. Latvia, Lithuania, and Ostonia are presented as examples of imperial expansion rather than colonial possessions. Their incorporation into the into the Soviet sphere reflected imperial incorporation rather than administration through a separate colonial framework. Hence, option A best captures the distinction the author intends. Next one. Phenomena such as disappearing from one location and reappearing elsewhere, existing in multiple places simultaneously, or transmitting information seemingly faster than the speed of light, belong to the strange vocabulary of quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics. Yet, what possible connection could such counterintuitive behavior have with flowering plants, migratory birds, or even the smell of rotten eggs? These questions have given rise to an emerging field known as quantum biology, which seeks to investigate whether living systems exploit phenomena traditionally associated with the quantum realm. Read. Mohak, you are still there in the class? You said you would be leaving. And nothing is wrong with you, Devansh. Absolutely nothing is wrong with you. We'll get better with time. We'll improve. Devansh, like Mohak said, it's fine. It's okay to be wrong sometimes. If we are all all right all the time, गलत कौन करेगा? और गलती नहीं करेंगे तो हम क्या करेंगे? थोड़ी बहुत तो गलती होनी चाहिए, है ना? तुम गलती नहीं करोगे तो मैं क्या करूंगी? ये भी तो सोचो. एक दो गलती ठीक है, कोई ना फर्क पड़ता. And life is a series of errors. Yes. Among the most firmly established examples is photosynthesis, the remarkably efficient process through which plants and certain bacteria convert sunlight into chemical energy. Evidence suggests that this mechanism exploits quantum superposition, whereby particles appear to occupy multiple states simultaneously. Tiny packets of energy seem capable of exploring several pathways at once before converging upon the most efficient route. What makes this particularly striking is that biological systems appear able to preserve such fragile quantum effects despite operating in environments that are warm, moist, and chemically complex. Devansh, I wrote a rather long note for you, and the chat doesn't allow me to write such a long answer. But let me read what I wrote. First, I wrote it is perfectly okay to make mistakes. Then I wrote every mistake shows you how the passage thinks and helps you become a better reader. Improvement in RC comes not from getting every answer right, but from understanding why an answer was wrong and learning from it. Each passage you attempt makes you a little stronger from the last one. Okay? So don't feel bad if you get an answer wrong. We all make mistakes. We all make mistakes. No problem. गलती हो गई. और कभी इस गलती की बात नहीं कर रही हूँ. कभी भी डोंट dwell on your mistakes. कोई भी मिस्टेक है, बिकॉज यू कांट चेंज इट, बदल तो सकते नहीं, है ना? और कई बार जो हम लोगों ने पास्ट में काम किए हैं या नहीं किए हैं, वो जब किए थे तब लग रहा था सही है, वी enjoyed while we were doing. ठीक है? थैंक यू सो मच फॉर लिसनिंग टू दिस. डोंट टेक इट एज बकवास. हाँ, मैं रियली मोटिवेट करने की बातें करती हूँ. Similar mysteries may underlie animal navigation, the extraordinary precision with which birds migrate across continents and even between poles has long puzzled scientists. Experiments involving European robins revealed that their migratory orientation depended upon specific wavelengths of light and could be disrupted by exceptionally weak radio signals. Neither effect should influence the conventional magnetic compass, once thought to explain avian. Avian means to deal with birds, navigation. A more persuasive explanation invokes quantum entanglement. According to quantum theory, entangled particles remain correlated regardless of the distances separating them, behaving as though each somehow registers changes affecting the other. Researchers propose that such interactions occur within molecules located in bird's eyes, producing something akin to a visual overlay that allows magnetic fields to be perceived alongside ordinary sight. Please read on your own. Thank you, Devansh. Thank you so much. Each passage makes you better. Each reading. Even at this age, I feel the more I read, the better I become. And Devansh and everybody read, 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 read. Only read. Okay? What continues to intrigue researchers is the possibility that these examples merely hint at much broader role for quantum phenomena in living systems. Are these three cases only the beginning, asked Turin, or is there nothing further beneath the surface? We simply do not know, and we will not know until we continue to look. The unanswered question, therefore, is not whether quantum biology exists, but how deeply its influence extends throughout the natural worlds. So, what does the author principally seek to emphasize by describing the proposition that biology might play host to quantum states as being almost heretical? Heretical. Heresy. What is heresy? It's very important to know the meaning of the word heresy. If you know the meaning of the word heresy, you will know the meaning of heretical. Heresy is a religious opinion or belief that is different from what is generally accepted to be true. Heretical is to go against religious beliefs. Question 1. Yes, please start writing the answers. Question 1. Anybody writing the answer? By I saying write the answer, I wanted you to write the answer in the chat. You haven't written the answer. Question 1, B. Anshika, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Anshika. B. The author stresses that quantum effects had previously been observed only under extraordinarily controlled conditions involving low temperatures and pressures similar to those of outer space. Biological systems being warm, wet, and chemically complex appeared inhospitable to such fragile phenomena. Hence, the idea seemed almost heretical. The phrase highlights the radical departure from prevailing scientific assumptions rather than any technological consequences or astrophysical analogy. 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 I have discussed this word before. An analogy is a comparison between two things that show how they are similar. Analogy. One is B. There is something which you can tell me, all of you. There is this crown in front of names. So Jyoti Kathju, crown 3. Again and again it's crown 3, it's not increasing. And Moha, crown 2. Anshika, crown 1. Anshika, crown 1. What do these crowns mean in front of our names? Does it mean the person who's the third to write? Anshika, you are crown 1. So it is written like that, there's a crown, then there is this hash and there is 1. In front of my name, there is a crown and then there is a hash and then there is 3. Does it mean I was the third person to chat? Okay, if you know the answer, tell me, otherwise I'll check. Option B. Option B. Turin asks whether the 3 examples, photosynthesis, navigation and smell, represent only the beginning or whether there is nothing further beneath the surface. His uncertainty concerns the breadth of quantum physiobiology. The existence of the currently identified cases is not questioned. Rather, he wonders whether they constitute isolated exceptions or indications of a much wider biological phenomena. Okay. Option A. Out of scope, Turin discusses the scope of quantum biology, not research funding or applications. Option C. Opposite stance. He accepts the validity of the existing examples and does not suggest their experimental artifacts. Option D. Unsupported inference. No doubts are expressed regarding quantum theory itself. Question 3. Yuvraj, I'm in class just now. Can I get back to you at 10 o'clock?
Actually, I'm standing in front of your house, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, 1 second, please. Huh? Give me 1 minute. Give me 1 minute. सीमा, रीना, यहाँ पे किताबें पड़ी थी, कहाँ गई? ये जरा बाहर एक भैया खड़े हैं, उनको दे दो. मैं क्लास में हूँ. सुनो, ये बाहर एक खड़ा है लड़का, उसको दे दो. कोई भी नहीं सुनता है यहाँ पे घंटी तो. ये इसको दे दो, युवराज को दे दो. खड़ा है बाहर. मैं क्लास में जा रही हूँ. है बाहर, मिल गया? कहाँ? युवराज, मैं क्लास में जा रही हूँ. हाँ, मेरा ऑनलाइन सेशन. ये रहे सर, ये रहे. Which of the following statements most subtly misrepresents the claims advanced in the passage? Yes, have you got the answers? Yes, Anshika. The 1 means that you are chatting the most. 2 means number 2 and 3 means number 3. So I'm so thankful to you for your participation. Hmm. 3 options C. Excellent, Anshika. Excellent. देवांश C. देवांश एक बार आंसर पढ़ो. The passage states that weak radio signals and particular wavelengths of light disrupted bird orientation. And incidentally, the word Orion means sun, Orient means the east. And orientation means going in one direction, but orientation actually meant moving towards the east because the sun rises in the east. Thereby challenging the conventional magnetic compass explanation, the quantum entanglement hypothesis is introduced as an alternative explanation involving molecules in the eyes that generate a visual overlay of perceiving magnetic fields. Thus, entanglement is not said to protect or preserve the conventional compass mechanism. Instead, it replaces that explanation. Option C subtly reverses the role of evidence and therefore misrepresents the passage. Okay. देवांश आपने बी बोला था. Supported Turin's tunneling hypothesis focuses on molecular vibrations rather than shape alone. Option 4, question 4. But you know, Anshika, you are one, it means that you're talking the most. And this is a very good thing. A reading comprehensive class means you are I checked, I Googled, and Google told me that this means that Anshika is currently the top engaged participant in the chat. Fantastic. Fantastic. चलिए जी. Question 4 का क्या आंसर आता है बताइए. Option B. Question 4 का B. देवांश ने किया ही नहीं आपके. देवांश, why didn't you do? Keep trying. The passage merely contrasts warm, wet biological environments with the low temperature conditions under which quantum states had previously been observed. It never states that living systems are inherently incompatible with extremely low temperatures. Such a conclusion goes beyond the information provided. The author only notes that ordinary biological environments are warm and moist, not that life in low temperatures are mutually exclusive. Strongly implied, conventional theories explain smell primarily through molecular shape, implying little or no emphasis on vibrations. C, supported. D, directly supported. Next passage, please. Philologists. Okay, sorry. You were not able to read this, Devansh? I'm sorry. एक बार फिर पढ़ लो, आंसर पता चल गया है, फिर भी पढ़ लो. Read it again. Okay. A philologist. Now, who is a philologist? Who is a philologist? Now, a philologist is a person who loves language. Logi is study, phil is love. Now read the passage, please. Roughly a century ago, philologists produced what amounted to a revolutionary map of the linguistic world. The investigation suggested that a single ancestral lineage extended across much of Eurasia, from Iceland to Bangladesh. The majority of population spoke languages that could be regarded as descendants of a common progenitor known as Proto Indo European. Similarities in vocabulary and grammatical structure soon became evident, particularly among what were then considered the oldest surviving literary languages, Latin, Greek, and Sanskrit. Linguists propose that Sanskrit, the classical ancestor of Hindi, shared closer affinity with many European languages. The Sanskrit word trayas, is three, was recognized as cognate with the Latin tres and the Greek trees, all deriving from the same etymological root, tree. Matri is mother, Pitri is father. To explain such correspondences, scholars hypothesized that before the composition of the Vedas, Indo European speaking populations had migrated into the Indo-Aryan subcontinent from the northwest, while related groups moved westward into Europe. Yes, read this. This framework enables scholars to reconstruct Germanic forms by comparing them with Indo European languages. They remained unaffected by Grimm's law. Since Latin and Greek lie outside the Germanic family, they preserve clues to the early Indo European forms, inherited and subsequently modified by Germanic languages. Moreover, because English has absorbed an extensive body of vocabulary from both Latin and Greek, it often contains words that appear unrelated yet possess common etymological origins and overlapping semantic associations. Semantic means dealing with language. The Indo Europeans themselves are, in the strictest sense, a linguistic construct, for much of their history remains elusive. Elusive means hidden. Scholars have attempted to estimate the chronology of Proto Indo European fragmentation through glottochronology, a method based on presumed rates at which languages evolve. Such elementary calculations, however, have attracted considerable criticism because linguistic change is far from uniform. Languages may evolve at highly variable rates depending on historical and social circumstances. More sophisticated approaches would be necessary to establish reliable chronologies. At best, researchers can state that Proto Indian European society existed sometime between 5000 and 2000 BCE, an interval too broad to be particularly useful for connecting it to specified historical events. Equally problematic is the question of geographical origin, commonly referred to as the homeland problem. Nevertheless, despite these uncertainties, certain features of Proto Indian European society can be tentatively reconstructed through elements shared across descendant cultures. Linguistic evidence suggests that kinship was organized around the groom's family, such distinct terms existed for the bride's parents. The existence of roots associated with kingships, such as regal, implies familiarity with political authority. The Proto Indian possessed cattle, sheep, pigs, and dogs, lived in settlements, knew silver and copper. They buried their dead in kurgans or burial mounds. Interestingly, several of these characteristics are absent. Conversely, the absence of common roots for concepts such as ocean, bronze, and gold suggests that Proto Indian European communities either lacked knowledge of or contact with these phenomena. Thus, although the Indian European remains difficult to locate historically, linguistic evidence suggests to offer fragmentary but significant insights into their social organization and material life. I'm just giving you a list of words which I think you should know, which you know, of course. You know the word mother. I'm sure you know the word mother. The word mother comes from the Sanskrit word matri. Okay. Similarly, the word father comes from the Sanskrit word pitra. The word brother comes from the Sanskrit term bhrata. अब सोचो कि मातृ मदर कैसे हो गया? So matri, mata, and then it becomes mother. Similarly, father. Okay, now I'm saying father. So what happens is the Sanskrit word for father, I'm sure you know, is pitra. है ना? पिता. तो पित्र उससे हुआ पुत्र. ठीक है? उससे हुआ फ्यूदर और उससे हो गया फादर. और इस तरह से there are very many words in the English language. I'm not talking words like bhai and all, huh? Vendi, वो तो हिंदी इंग्लिश ही है. But there are words which we think are English. So they are from Hindi or Sanskrit, and then they went into Latin or French, whatever. Now do the question answers. The author's invocation of Sanskrit in the opening paragraph. Invocation, calling attention to. Paragraph primarily serves to establish that the numerical predominance of Indo-European languages in Eurasia itself sufficient proof of a common linguistic ancestry. Demonstrate that Sanskrit, by virtue of its antiquity, antiquity would mean ancientness. Ancientness is no word, remember, it is antiquity. Exercised a formative influence upon both Greek and Latin traditions. Illustrate the inferential basis upon which philologists posited a shared ancestry among geographically dispersed languages and consequently hypothesized population movements. Suggest that the similarities among Sanskrit, Greek, and Latin are so overwhelming that alternative explanations to common descent become methodologically untenable. हाँ जी, आंसर्स बोलिए, आंसर्स लिखिए. Untenable means impossible to defend. So option C. The reference to Sanskrit is intended to illustrate how philologists inferred common ancestry from systematic similarities in vocabulary and grammar. The cognates trias and trees triangle कहते हैं ना, Tri, Trinity, exemplify linguistic correspondence that led scholars to postulate. Postulate is to state effectively, Proto-Indo-European, and to hypothesize migrations into India and Europe. Thus, Sanskrit serves as evidence for a broader method of reconstruction rather than as an argument about its superiority or influence. A has conceptual distortion. Numerical predominance is not the basis of the argument. Systematic linguistic similarities are. B is unsupported inference. The passage never claims that Sanskrit influenced Greek or Latin. D, extreme language. The similarities are treated as evidence supporting common descent, not as making alternative explanations impossible. Question 2, please. Invocation, Devansh, means the act of asking for help through voice. All these words come from the word voice. So, vocal, invoke. So, you invoke blessings. Hey Bhagwan, मेरे लिए ये कर दो. मम्मी ये दे दो. Invoke. Provoke is to make angry. अच्छा देवांश, थैंक यू फॉर द क्वेश्चन. और एक चीज देवांश, अंशिका, आप लोग याद रखना, ये सारे वर्ड्स VOC से आते हैं, जिसका मतलब होता है वॉइस. और एक वर्ड है वोकैब्युलरी, ये भी यहीं से आता है. तो इन्वोक इज यूजुअली, एंड इन्वोक का जो नाउन होता है वो इन्वोकेशन होता है. सो एन इन्वोकेशन इज ऑफन अ प्रेयर, बट इन दिस कॉन्टेक्स्ट वी इन्वोक, वी स्टेट, जो मैंने आपको बोला. अच्छा, संस्कृत में और हिंदी में फ है, फ इतना नहीं है, सॉरी, संस्कृत में. तो वो जो प है पित्र, जर्मन में जाके वो फ हो गया, फिद्र. फिद्र, देखो हिंदी में बोला पित्र, संस्कृत में बोला फिद्र, जर्मन में बोला फिद्र, और वो हो गया फूदर. फूदर हो गया फादर. मातृ हुआ मात्र, मथर. मथर हो गया मदर. भ्रातृ, ब्रदर. शिष्ट, सुश्रुत. सुश्रुत, शिष्ट. और देखो मैं याद कर रही हूँ, मुझे भी याद नहीं आ रहा. There are a lot of words which have traveled from in Sanskrit to German and from German to English. हाँ जी. Empirical. Empirical. Empirical means based on experiments. Okay, rather than theory. Yeah, rejoin. Please rejoin. Anshika, please rejoin. To C. A. The passage assumes that a common language implies a previously shared culture. Option A directly strengthens this proposition by showing that linguistic continuity is usually accompanied by similarities in institutions. Kinship is relationship and material life. If language and culture incorrect. Yes. Have you got the answer? B, partially correct but incomplete. It speaks only of similarities among Indo-European societies after dispersal, not of whether a common language presupposes an earlier common culture. B, C is neutral. Divergence between linguistic and cultural identities weakens rather than strengthens the claim. If linguistic convergence occurs despite distinctive cultures, then language does not necessarily imply common culture. 3. Now, whenever you have the time, please go through Grimm's Law. Just read it, or I'll do it with you tomorrow. By tomorrow, I mean when I meet you next time. We'll do Grimm's Law. Also, do Murphy's Law. Just read. These are laws which need to be read. They're not part of the curriculum. But you should know what is the Grimm's Law. Okay? Yes. Have you got the answers, ladies and gentlemen? A, B या C या D? हाँ जी. Grimm demonstrated that apparently different Germanic words could be recognized as cognates. A cognate is a similar word. Uh, since Latin and Greek were unaffected by Grimm's law, comparing their forms with Germanic words allows scholars to reconstruct earlier forms. Therefore, apparent dissimilarity does not imply unrelatedness. One must account for the systematic consonantal changes. Consonantal changes. Give me a minute. Uh, let's read. Let me read about Grimm's law and tell you. Grimm's law is about the first set of linguistic rules. First set of linguistic rules, and they were formulated by Jacob Grimm. Jacob Grimm, and it proves that Germanic languages are genealogically related to Latin, Greek, and Sanskrit. So, Germanic languages are English. English is a Germanic language. Latin and Greek are not Germanic languages, remember that. Okay. And so they are related to this. But if you read yourself about Grimm's law, or maybe next time I explain to you in more detail, it will add to your knowledge bank, which is very, 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 very important. To have extra knowledge always helps in English. Devansh, I'm waiting for your answer. And Devansh, I always think of your name. What a lucky name to have, huh? Devansh. देवों का जो अंश हो तो देवांश बहुत पावरफुल नाम है, मतलब छोटा मोटा पावरफुल नाम नहीं है, बहुत पावरफुल है. मेरा नाम तो ज्योति है, तो रोशनी है वो तो, पर तुम तो देवों के अंश हो. वेल डन. 4 देवांश says, ये तो 4 चल रहा है. देवांश 3 का भी है, 4 का चलो. डी. The major uncertainties identified by the author concern chronology and homeland, a study merely highlighting differences between Indo-European practices and those of the Indus civilization does not substantially narrow these uncertainties. The passage already notes such differences, hence this investigation contributes little towards solving the central problems. Okay? The major uncertainties. Incorrect. A. Dating horse domestication and kurgan burials could help such. No. Directly relevant. Improved glottochronology addresses the chronology problem. Directly relevant. Question 5. Please do question 5. By observing that elementary glottochronological methods are not generally favored by scholars, the author most nearly implies A, B, C, or D. The option is D. The passage criticizes simple glottochronological calculations because they assume uniform rates of linguistic change, whereas actual linguistic evolution varies considerably across historical and social contexts. The author does not reject the approach entirely. Rather, he argues that more sophisticated methods are needed. Thus, the criticism concerns methodological inadequacy rather than complete invalidity. A. Incorrect. Extreme language. B. Overstatement. C. Unsupported inference. Now, just look for all these in your answers. One, of course, extreme language, overstatement, and also unsupported inference. Inference, I told you, is a guess. This is our next passage. Begin to read. The British Museum's decision to devote a major exhibition to Hokusai this summer may be regarded less as a celebratory novelty than the rectification of a long standing omission. Despite the artist's extraordinary accomplishment, our understanding of him remains surprisingly fragmentary. Fragmentary. Frag means broken pieces. So, a fracture is a broken bone, and a fraction is a broken number. Through its subtle, despite the artist's extraordinary accomplishment, our understanding of him remains surprisingly fragmentary. Through its subtitle, Beyond the Great Wave, the exhibition seeks to redirect attention away from the single image with which Hokusai is most commonly identified and toward the astonishing breadth of a corpus, whose richness warrants comparison with figures such as Van Gogh and Rembrandt. His Ovier, Ovier is a collection of work, total collection, reveals itself not as the achievement of a solitary masterpiece, but as a constantly evolving artistic vision marked by emotion subtlety, intellectual complexity, and remarkable stylistic versatility. This is a very interesting word, huh? Just remember this word. It comes OEUVRE. OEUVRE. This means the complete collection of artistic works. OEUVRE. OEUVRE. Please read. Hokusai is a Japanese artist. Hokusai is a Japanese artist. Please Google him. And the moment you write Hokusai on Google, lovely, 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 lovely paintings come. From a Western perspective, distinctions among artists such as Hokusai, Hiroshige, and Utagawa Kunaiki were often blurred. Their identities as highly individual masters of woodblock printing remained secondary to their utility as sources of inspiration for European modernism. For European modernism. For European modernism. Consequently, while their artistic products circulated widely, their personal histories and creative distinctiveness remained comparatively obscure. Obscure meaning hidden. Have you heard of Van Gogh? Remember these names, huh? Yellow sunflowers, Van Gogh. The marginalization of these artists reflects broader patterns within Western constructions of genius, just as women were long excluded from dominant artistic narratives despite their accomplishments, so too were creators outside Europe admired yet seldom granted full individuality. Japanese artists of the 18th and early 19th centuries were frequently seen less as singular creative personalities than as craftsmen faithfully transmitting inherited traditions. Their works were celebrated, but the subjective vision informing them remained insufficiently acknowledged. What renders Hokusai exceptional, however, is precisely that quality which distinguishes enduring art across cultures, a profound attentiveness to human life. In one print depicting figures struggling against the wind, one encounters a sensibility recalling Turner's responsiveness to nature combined with a social wit reminiscent of Jane Austen. This union of grandeur and humor constitutes one of Hokusai's defining achievements and stands in marked contrast to European traditions that often compartmentalize the sublime and the comic. Neither Hogarth's satire nor Friedrich's landscapes exhibit such effortless synthesis. Hokusai's genius resides in his ability to reconcile seriousness with playfulness, presenting the world not as fragmented experiences, but as a coherent whole that the artist patiently observes. Now, Jane Austen's social wit, Jane Austen and social wit. Remember, social wit is uh, Jane Austen is a British writer. And I'll just read out the first line of her book, Pride and Prejudice. And see, that is social wit. Just listen, I'm reading. It is a youth, it is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. A single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. Now, this is known as social wit. And all her drama, all her stories, they are not dramas, is that. Read up Jane Austen also. I'll give you lots of work to read, but you must read. You can't read up her plays, her stories, but please, 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 please read up about Jane Austen and Pride and Prejudice. His vision of humanity is characterized by sympathy, curiosity, and quiet affection, whether portraying travelers crossing precarious bridges, fishermen confronting turbulent seas, lovers in Edo's pleasure districts, or ordinary individuals enduring snow and wind. He approaches existence with an attitude of philosophical generosity. The mystical grandeur of Mount Fuji and the sensual candor is frankness, of his Sugar Prince emerge from the same expansive understanding of human experience. Hokusai appears to conceive of individuals not as isolated beings, but as fundamentally social creatures embedded within shared worlds. Above all, his art expresses an ethic of acceptance, inviting viewers to engage with life in all its unpredictability. His achievement lies not merely in aesthetic brilliance, but in a vision that encourages joy, reflection, and a liberated openness to experience. Yes. Starry nights, Anshika, could be a starlit canopy. Okay. Yes. One. Have you written? Anybody? Answers to one. Have I got them here? This I just told you, huh? When you want to say starry nights in English, in poetry, you could say a starlit canopy. A canopy is a shamiana. One. Yes. 1A. The author repeatedly emphasizes that Japanese prints were appreciated primarily as sources of exotic motifs with Japoniseri, while the individual personalities of artists such as Hokusai, Hiroshige, and Utagawa Kuniaki remained obscure. The works were admired, but the creators were denied the same individualized treatment accorded to European geniuses. The comparison with women excluded from dominant artistic narratives reinforces this point. Therefore, option A captures an implication running throughout the passage. B is inaccurate, it's the opposite stance. C contradicts the passage. And D is out of scope. D is out of scope. And the other thing I wanted to tell you, Van Gogh. Just remember Van Gogh. Now, Van Gogh is a painter and he was Dutch. He was Dutch. And this is just a GK awareness thing that if you see the color yellow, Van Gogh used a lot of yellow. Like the moment I think of Van Gogh, the color that comes to me in my mind is yellow. Okay, these questions don't come. I'm not saying that they'll ask you to match the following Van Gogh and this, but you should know that in passages that Van Gogh is a Dutch painter and Emily Zola is never mentioned, and the passage offers no basis for such an inference. So, option A. Option 2, all of the following are attributable to Hokusai's artistic. Emily Zola is a French novelist and journalist. French novelist and journalist is not a painter. And the word Emily makes you think it's a woman, it's a man. French man. All of the following characteristics are attributable, sorry for that, attributable to Hokusai's artistic vision, except, yes, 2. D. The author attributes sympathy, generosity, and openness to Hokusai's vision, but these emerge implicitly through artistic sensibility rather than through explicit moral instruction. Hokusai's art invites reflection and acceptance. It does not prescribe virtues or function, such as a didactic program. Hence, option D introduces an element absent from the passage. Yes. 2D, Anshika, you are correct. Anshika, you are correct. Didactic. Say the word didactic. Yes. Didactic means something intended to teach. So if I were to continuously tell you सच बोलना है, झूठ नहीं बोलना, ये करना है, ये नहीं करना है, it's almost dictatorial instruction. Didactic. 3. Which of the following revisions and critical perspective would the author be least inclined to endorse? Like I told you already, endorse means to support. A broader recognition of women and non-European artists within inherited narratives of artistic genius, greater sensitivity to the distinctive artistic personalities of individual Japanese printmakers rather than their assimilation into a homogeneous category, enhanced public awareness of the lives and identities of woodblock artists whose work nourished from European modernism, the proposition that Japanese artists themselves should be credited with originating the modernist movement in its entirety. Okay. Anshika says D, Devansh says D, and it is D. Fantastic. वाह वाह. See, correct हो गया ना? दोनों correct हो गए. वाह. The author's concern, दोनों correct हो गए यानी देवांश और अंशिका दोनों की correct हो गए. Very, 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 very good. The author's concern is with correcting neglect and acknowledging individuality, not with replacing one exclusivist narrative with another. He argues against reducing Japanese artists to sources of inspiration, but nowhere suggests that modernism should be attributed entirely to them. Such a claim would merely substitute one oversimplification of another. Incorrect कौन-कौन से हैं? A is supported. The comparison with women excluded from artistic narratives indicates sympathy for broader recognition. B is directly supported. The author criticizes the homogenization of Japanese printmakers. C is supported. And the contrast between the extensively documented life of Van Gogh. 4. देवांश, एक आपने सेंटेंस सुना होगा, स्माइल, मुस्कुराइए, आप कैमरा में हैं. तो why sigh of relief? Fantastic, very good. Endorse means to support. And I'll give you the literal meaning, the dictionary meaning also. To say publicly that you give official support or agreement to a plan or statement. So I endorse Norman Lewis. I endorse reading a lot. जितना ज़्यादा पढ़ोगे उतना फायदा होगा. And it's not about reading comprehension, it's about life. चलो ये 4 करते हैं, फिर अपन कुछ words करेंगे. हाँ जी. Option C. Hokusai's ability to unite grandeur with humor and contrast this with European traditions that frequently compartmentalize the sublime and the comic. His achievement lies not simply in possessing both elements, but in integrating them. 4C. 5 now. 4 is C. There was this word neglect. Yes. Five. Okay. Have you done 5, Devansh? Devansh, you are right. Anshika, you are right. Fantastic. देवांश देखो एक गलत एक सही और बाद में होते हैं एक गलत 4 सही. Very good, very good, very good. The passage states that Japanese prints were often submitted under Japoneercery and valued chiefly as repositories of exotic motifs available for appropriation by European modernists. individual distinctions among Hokusai, Hiroshige, Notagawa Konaiki could become blurred. Opposite stance, the category obscured individuality rather than recognizing it. B is partially correct but incomplete. Neglect of individuality is correct, but the central emphasis is on their absorption into an exoticized category rather than their experiment with too narrow. Japoniseric encompassed Japanese art generally and was not restricted only to works influencing avant-garde painting. Avant-garde means ordinary. Now look at this word neg. Please remember the word neg and say to me neg. Now neg, negate. Negate means to deny. Negate means to deny. Negative. Negative is denial. Negative is denial. Neglect is to fail to care for. Fail to care for. Negligent. Negligent is careless. Negligent is careless. Then also negligible. Negligible means so small that it will not bother you. These errors are negligible. Negotiate. And also there's a word called renegade. This comes very often in CAT. A renegade is a traitor. Now see. Now reg abhi aaya tha na, meaning regal, and negate meaning to deny. So somebody who denies regal authority is a renegade. Also there is a word called neglect. You got neglect. The new evidence negated. Yes, Devansh, you've been really good. Is there any other word which you would like me to explain? Like this. You could write in the passage. Because we've got 5 minutes more. I would rather do some new word with you than a passage. Any other root word that you'd like me to say? For example, there was the word appropriate. Do you remember the word appropriate? Appropriate reg, okay? Thank you. Now, reg means regal. What does reg mean? Regal. Okay. So, reg also means rule. And reign. A king rules. Sorry. Reign. Reign also comes from rule. Regent. Now, who is a regent? A regent is a person who rules in place of the king if the king is young. Okay. Regent. It's regent. So, again I repeat, reg means ruler, regal. Reign means rule. Regent means regent. And his rule is called regime. You've got all these words. And from regime, regulation. A regulation is a law made by the government. Regiment. You know the word regiment? It means a military unit. So remember, this is just a trick to understand words. And from there we get the word direct. Rect means correct. Okay. Reg means rule, but rect means correct. So, a rectangle is a figure with right angles. Okay. You remember, na? A rectangle has 4 right angles. And wo jo humne abhi bola, Sanskrit and English and Hindi and all, that is triangle. Okay. Now, direct, correct, Rectify. They all come from the word rect. Okay? Thank you so much, Devansh, for the question. If there's one more word, I can do it with you. Anything that strikes, whether it's English or it's GK. If something strikes you, I would be very, 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 very happy to do the word with you. No words? Okay, I think I did June with you once. I did June with you from Juno. And July, the next month that's coming, maybe our next class will be in July. July comes from Julius Caesar. July comes from Julius Caesar. That'll be all for this wonderful class. Thank you so much for your participation. And thank you so much for being with us. I enjoyed my class. I hope you did enjoy it too. Thanks a ton, ladies, and thanks a ton, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Let us meet when time allows. And let us meet when time is